Welcome back, everybody. Today we're diving deep into something you sent our way, excerpts from a book called The Art of Being Alone.
Sounds like someone's looking to turn solitude into a strength.
You got it. Based on what we've seen from this Renuka Gavrani, the author, it's not about, hiding away from everyone.
Right, more like figuring out how to really thrive when you're on your own, that whole personal growth thing.
Yes, and one thing that really caught my eye was this idea that loneliness is, like, a made-up thing, a construct.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Like, is it really loneliness, or are we just kind of buying into what society tells us we should be feeling?
Hmm. That's a huge point the book's making.
Yeah.
It's saying it's less about actually being physically alone and more about how we see ourselves, like in relation to other people.
So even in a crowd, you could feel disconnected.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially if you don't have that self-acceptance piece.
Which makes the whole rescued by someone else's thing even funnier, right? All those rom-coms where being alone is like the ultimate failure until Prince Charming shows up.
Huh? Totally. And I think that's where Gavrani's personal stories come in. The stuff you mentioned about her changing schools and friendships ending.
Yeah, you can totally relate to that, even if you haven't lived her exact life.
For sure. It's that feeling of like,
Oh,
almost like we're supposed to be part of a pair to be happy.
totally. Okay, so to sum up, the book's big claim is being alone does not automatically equal loneliness.
Right. It's more about how we view ourselves, not whether there's a crowd around or not.
Which I guess leads to a question for everyone listening. How much of your alone time feels real, like genuinely enjoyable?
And how much of it feels like, oh, I should be doing something else. Maybe this is a chance to rethink some of those default settings we have around being alone.
You know, it blew my mind reading about George O'Keeffe, this amazing artist.
Oh, yeah. What about her?
She lived in the desert for years, basically just her and her art supplies. Talk about focus.
It really shows how solitude can be this incredible source of, like, creative power, doesn't it? Flips the whole lonely artist thing on its head.
Totally. And then the book gets super real, talking about how we hide our true selves to fit in.
Like wearing a different mask for each group.
Exactly. Remember that story where Gavrani was saying she felt like a different person with each group of friends? Super relatable.
Especially when you're trying not to get overwhelmed by everyone's expectations.
Yeah, and that's where the book shifts to this whole self-acceptance thing.
It's saying that to really enjoy solitude, you got to uncover and embrace who you really are, flaws and all.
Not trying to be some perfect version of yourself just to please others.
Exactly. Be yourself.
Yeah.
So then the book gets to this really fun part. It's all about making alone time something you actually look forward to.
Okay, that's intriguing because usually when I'm alone, I just reach for my phone.
Yeah. That's exactly what the book's trying to challenge.
Okay, so instead of seeing it as this empty space that needs to be filled with distractions or people.
It's about creating your own little world of joy that you can tap into whenever.
So instead of just enduring it, you're actually craving that alone time. How do we even get there?
It's about finding those things that really light you up. Things you can do completely on your own and make them a regular part of your life.
Gotcha. So what kind of stuff are we talking about here?
Gavrani gives some examples from her own life, like taking these long walks in the evening just to observe the city, or like setting up a movie night atmosphere at home, cozy blankets, snacks. But for a movie she wants to watch.
But isn't the whole point of movie night the shared experience?
Well, I think that's the assumption the book's pushing us to question. Could it be that we've limited ourselves by thinking certain activities are only fun with other people?
Yeah, maybe.
What if those solo experiences could actually be more freeing? You can fully immerse yourself without any pressure to entertain someone else.
Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind a little. But what about the bigger picture stuff? You mentioned personal growth before. How does that fit into making alone time enjoyable?
The book actually suggests using that solitude to develop new skills or learn about stuff you've always been curious about.
Yeah.
Remember, you were saying you're a hands-on learner.
Yeah, for sure.
This could be right up your alley.
So instead of scrolling endlessly, I could be learning ukulele or finally figuring out how to bake sourdough.
Exactly. It's not about becoming a master chef or anything overnight, but about using that alone time to do something productive and rewarding for yourself.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here. But let's be real, sometimes I just don't even know where to begin.
That's where the book's emphasis on action goals comes back in. Instead of just saying, I want to learn something new, you break it down into smaller steps. Like, this week, I'll research some online courses and pick one.
So it's like that make dreams your buddy thing in action.
Exactly. It's about taking those big, maybe intimidating aspirations and turning them into manageable steps. The book suggests Starting small, focus on one area where you want to see some improvement.
Okay, got it. One thing I always struggle with, though, is trying to do too much at once. It's like I get excited, set a bunch of goals, and then burn out before I even start.
That's something the book addresses directly. Givrani talks about working with your natural rhythms and preferences, not against them. She even shares her own story of trying to force herself into an early bird routine when she's naturally more productive at night.
So it's okay to embrace my night owl tendencies.
Absolutely. It's all about creating a life that feels authentic and sustainable for you, not trying to fit into some mold. So if you're at your most creative in the evenings, go for it.
This is making me totally rethink how I approach personal growth. It's like, what if instead of seeing alone time as this obstacle, it could be my secret weapon?
That's exactly the shift. And it goes beyond just learning new skills, too.
Mm.
Gavrani's a big advocate for using alone time to, like, feed your brain with knowledge. Remember you mentioned feeling intimidated by those serious books?
Well, yeah, totally. Like I wasn't smart enough to read them or something.
The book challenges that whole idea. Gavrani herself went from hating books to being a total bookworm. And she credits that shift with changing her life. It's about moving beyond what we learned in school and becoming lifelong learners, always searching for new perspectives and ideas.
Yeah, I get that, but sometimes I feel like I read something and then it just goes in one ear and out the other.
That's why the book really emphasizes actively engaging with what you're reading or learning, not just passively taking it in. Gavrani suggests things like keeping a journal to jot down key takeaways, or even create little profiles of people who inspire you.
So it's like turning those aha moments into something concrete, something you can actually use.
Exactly. It's about making those insights stick and putting them into practice in your own life.
Wow, this is making me think about all the potential hidden in those everyday moments of solitude.
And that leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, which the book calls becoming independent.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It's about taking ownership of your desires and making them happen, rather than waiting for someone else to do it for you.
So no more waiting for that perfect travel buddy or hoping someone will invite me to that cool restaurant.
Exactly. It's about stepping into your power and creating the life you want.
Okay, I'm definitely ready to hear more about that. That sounds incredibly empowering. So how do we actually go from like wishing for things to doing them, especially the stuff we usually think we need other people for?
That's where this analogy in the book comes in,
Mm-hmm.
about the world being like a dinner party.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You can't just sit there waiting to be served, right? You got to get up and serve yourself.
Uh-huh, I love that. It's like we're in charge of our own happiness, not waiting for someone to hand it to us.
Exactly. And Gavrani gives these really practical examples of what that looks like, day to day. Instead of waiting for a movie night with friends, she creates that same cozy vibe at home just for herself. Or instead of wishing for a picnic invite, she packs up her favorite snacks, a good book, and heads to her spot.
So it's about flipping those I wish someone would moments into I'm going to do this for myself
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah, exactly. Recognizing what you want and then just doing it, not waiting for the perfect time or the perfect company.
That's so cool. It's like taking control and making a life that feels good, whether you're with people or on your own.
And the book really emphasizes doing it with intention, putting in the effort to make those solo experiences special.
So like actually getting dressed up for a solo dinner date or like writing a love letter to myself.
Exactly. It's about celebrating yourself, treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show to anyone else.
It's like a radical act of self-love.
Yeah. Recognizing you're worthy and then creating a life that shows that.
You know, it's amazing how much we've covered just talking about these excerpts. We started by questioning the whole idea of loneliness.
Then we got into self-acceptance.
Turning dreams into action, finding joy in solitude, and now this whole radical independence thing.
It's been a total reframing of how we see alone time, right? Going from feeling like something's missing to feeling empowered.
And I think it all comes back to that core message from the book, that being alone can actually be a huge source of strength and growth.
Almost like a superpower once you figure out how to be alone well.
Totally. And the book leaves us with this really interesting question to think about. If we can change how we live every single day to build the life we want, like Gavrani says.
Does that mean that the small choices we make during our alone time are even more powerful than we realize?
That's a good one. What about you? What really stuck with you from all of this?
I think it's that reminder that we have way more control over our own happiness than we think. We don't have to wait for permission or someone to go with us to chase our dreams or create the life we want.
It's all there inside us, just waiting to come out.
Exactly.